How are you all doing? It's quite a murky, unpleasant day today, isn't it? I'm not sure if it comes out on the camera. So it's a really good day to answer some questions, to finish that Q&A video that I filmed in September when I was sat in a t-shirt on Wanstead Flats, and I only got through about half the questions. So I'm going to do my best to answer the rest of your fantastic questions today. And there were great questions here. They're too good to be left unanswered on the YouTube community tab. So buckle up, we're just going to have a wander around the streets of Leytonstone here as I dive into your brilliant questions. The first one is from Tony. Talks about working in London for 10 years. Loves my videos, discovered them 4 years ago. Thanks very much, Tony. And basically says, at the moment I'm working in Waterloo. I've become enamoured with this area. Could you walk through it for documentation before it's lost to gentrification? It's a really interesting question, that, because there is a great video on YouTube of Barry Norman, the film critic, and Bob Hoskins walking around Waterloo. I think it's in the early 80s. I think it must be linked to the Long Good Friday. Bob Hoskins is railing against the change in the area and the gentrification. I think what Tony must be talking about is not the area around the South Bank, must be sort of just behind that, or the sort of council estates, lots of council estates around Waterloo, right in central London. That's a really good idea, Tony, because I have passed through Waterloo on a walk or two, but I started a walk there that went to Putney. So it's a good idea. I think I will do that. Thank you. Next one from GFunk199. I've been watching your videos now since Christmas 2018. Thank you. I won't read that for all of them. It's really nice that people say lovely things. I've always wondered how you find the music to accompany your films. Are you constantly searching for new music? Good question. I put quite a lot of effort into choosing the music, and all the music comes from the YouTube audio library. But YouTube provides you with music for you to use on YouTube without violating anyone's copyright. So it's yeah, I do spend quite a bit of time finding the music in the audio library, although you'll notice I've got a kind of repertoire of songs that I tend to use. Robojax, cracking name, Robojax. Personally, I love your walks around the city. Any more on the horizon? Absolutely. I need to finish the City Churches videos. That's great. If any of you haven't watched those yet, I'll link below. There's 33, I think, existing City of London churches, and then a number of other plaques marking the sites of former City of London churches. And then we've got some of the old burial grounds from the churches that were either bombed or just demolished in the 19th century. So there's good, at least another 2 videos there. And I think I quite like the idea of doing a video about the secret gardens of the City of London. That was a suggestion, actually. So yes, plenty more city videos. Muse Hick, 1953. Worked in London in the 70s, and on my time off used to hop on the tube and go to visit different places. Does that mean I was an early psychogeographer? Yeah, I suppose so. I don't think, you know, the term psychogeography was coined by a group of French, I was going to call them intellectuals. I think they called themselves intellectuals, that were originally called the Lettrist International, then they became the Situationist International, and that practice, if you like, of psychogeography was developed. Guy Debord is the most famous, and he wrote the kind of texts that come down. Jules Yvan also wrote some of the kind of early foundational ideas of psychogeography in France in the 50s, and they said themselves, the term itself has a very pleasing vagueness to it. In a sense, you can kind of, it means to you what it means, right? Essentially, yeah, wandering around, walking with attitude, wandering with attitude, walking purposefully and with an awareness, walking with an aim, if you like, to document, like what Tony suggested, walking to document change in an area, that kind of thing. So if you were kind of drifting, trying to unlock the secrets of the city, trying to discover what was going on, yeah, you were an early psychogeographer. I really like these streets here around Leytonstone. There's that white building down the end. Let's go have a look at it. I think it must have been a factory or something. I really like this street coming out of the end of Rhodesia Road, which used to be the site of the Centre for the Leytonstone Centre for Contemporary Art. I will link to a video I made about that below. Where are we? This one from Feed or Fed. What's the best area or borough to leave in? I think I mean live in. London, having children, comparing with safety, spending, commitment. It's a difficult question to answer. There's so many factors, aren't there, to take into account, because this is a great area. Leighton. It's got expensive though now. It's expensive now, and actually, you could say like one of the biggest dangers around here in terms of raising a family is pollution because of the M11 link road. There are pollution maps you can access online that show you the areas which have the worst pollution. Not particularly affordable anymore. I would say if you're looking for that combination of things of you want some nice open space, you want affordability, and you want good schools, nice place to bring up a family, you want to look around the kind of fringes really. Probably I'd say around the southern fringes, which is a little bit cheaper. Chingford was sort of all of those things, I think, recently. Again, it's probably getting more expensive now. This is the building, look. What do you think that was originally? A school? I think it's some sort of factory. It's interesting, isn't it? It always catches my eye. So we're going to go down Ashfield Road now. In what ways have areas like Clerkenwell, King's Cross and Shoreditch changed in your time in London? All have an air of massive transformation, with Exmouth Market now feeding Clerkenwell office workers, the many pubs, bars and restaurants of Shoreditch catering to East Anglian revellers, and the incredible modernisation of the once derelict King's Cross. Did you ever think such a transformation was possible? That's a really good question. Well, I think the biggest change of all of those the biggest change physically of all those areas is King's Cross, which is completely transformed. And we used to live not that far from King's Cross actually when our kids were born, and it was like a less than a 10-minute walk from our front door, and they were talking about those plans, so we sort of knew that was in the wings. But yeah, that's the most radical transformation of all of them. And if you go back to when I first came to London, that kind of thing seemed pretty unlikely. Certainly couldn't imagine a development like that happening right in the centre of London. And likewise around Shoreditch, I first came to London in '89, and that's kind of where I studied down at City of London Polytechnic, which was around Aldgate, Whitechapel. We used to go out in Brick Lane quite a lot and all the rest of it. So to see that, the way that changed, well, I guess that was started to change the late 90s, early 90s. That was sort of, I wouldn't say it was unlikely, but yeah, it was interesting anyway to see that suddenly this was a place that everyone wanted to come to and that everyone was talking about. And even when you would go to go to America and people knew about it there, they talked about Shoreditch and that. I think Clerkenwell physically, in my time in London, Clerkenwell's probably the one that's changed the least, because I don't really remember Clerkenwell as an industrial area. I mostly remember it as being an area populated by office workers. So that's possibly been the least amount of change. But change is constant. I suppose people say London's always changing, right? Minnie James asks if I've ever been to Devon and Cornwall. Says there's some great walks down there. Actually, my dad lives in North Devon, and I'll be going down there soon. I haven't made any videos. I made one video deep in the recesses of this channel, you'll see, and it's my son walking along Instow Beach. And there's actually a 30-second video of my dad walking along Westwood Hoe Beach. But that's it. Yeah, there's some great walking there. Maybe I should do a video on Dartmoor, Exmoor, Dartmoor. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Don't get lost there. Things will end badly. John asks, I've lived in Woolwich, Highbury, Homerton, Stoke Newington, Loughton, and now in High Wycombe. You seem to have also lived near all those places. Looking back, which feels the most like home to you? That's interesting, isn't it? Because they all have different things. This is what feels like home to me now. Leytonstone, I've been here quite a while now. I think the High Wycombe area, obviously, it's where I grew up, right? I lived there from 0 to 18. And actually what was interesting is I took my son, my youngest son, down for his first Wycombe Wanderers game in August. and he loved it, and it was great, and I felt a real strong connection again to the area. So I want to go and see Wycombe a few times this season. Oh wow, look at this. This is industrial. You can see, look, there's bricks in there. So I think that's the one that will always feel like home. But actually, all the places I've lived in London have a part of me there. I always feel an attachment to all of them. Islington was where my kids were born. It's the first place I lived in London with my wife when we moved over from Australia. It's difficult to say, but I think it's sort of going to be Wycombe followed by Leytonstone, I think, for sure. Can you see yourself doing a video? Can you do a video on Columbia Road, Bethnal Green? Feels like it's been gentrified in a weird way to make it seem as if it's always been bohemian like an East London Hampstead. Yeah, I mean that kind of went ages ago, doesn't it? The whole Columbia Road thing, sort of, God, I don't know, how long ago? 20 years, more than 20 years ago. I remember when I lived in Hackney in the early 90s, Columbia Road, it was the Dove pub, which was great, and they used to give free food. So we'd buy half a beer, because that's all we could afford, because we were on the dole. And then you just get kind of like a hot food platter when there was a football match on. It was great. So seeing the way that changed has been alarming. Will I do a video? I feel like, do you know what? I feel like, this is a bad attitude, but I feel like, there's lots of kind of like vloggers, lifestyle vloggers on YouTube who are like the 10 best places to get cocktails in London. Well, not saying anything against that, but I just feel like they've all done a video on Columbia Road, haven't they? So I feel like if I did a video on Columbia Road, it wouldn't be when there's a market. I haven't really got a lot of interest in pointing out she shops, really. Talking of that, we're going to be in Francis Road soon. So I don't know. I should do, shouldn't I? Because I should be open to making videos about all parts of London. Bethnal Green. Have I been through Bethnal? I've walked through Bethnal Green on a couple of videos. I'll link them below. Certainly one, anyway, which is a good walk along Globe Road. And I'm going to do a video on Roman Road. So how about Roman Road instead of Columbia Road? I know I need to change my attitude towards Columbia Road. I just feel like it's not quite the tone for me. Convince me I'm wrong though. This one's interesting. Hello, sir. Could you share a few uncut videos with us in the future? Tube station, St Paul's Cathedral, walk about the city. Well, I mean, this will be more or less uncut. I did do that actually a few years ago, about 4 years ago, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. And I did a walk in Epping Forest and I just basically put all the files up. Nobody watched it. It didn't seem to go down very well. It's an interesting idea. I have thought about it. I have thought about like just completely filming a walk, like using like an action camera like this one actually. Go back to my DJI Osmo today, so you can just plonk it on my chest, and thought I would just film an entire walk like that. Thought it could be quite interesting as an experiment. I don't know, would you watch that? Would you watch something like that? Quite interesting to do it one day anyway, wouldn't it? This is from Dryer Fryer, Dan Fryer, good question. What's your most memorable chance meeting whilst walking? It's a good question, isn't it? The one that comes to mind actually, because it's also the answer I give to a spooky story, is when I was walking the London Loop and I was over near West Drayton. I was walking on the canals there and I just got to the junction of two canals and turned. And as I was going down the junction towards West Drayton, this fella who can only describe as looking a bit like the drug dealer in Withnail and I can't remember, played by Ralph Brown, I can't remember the character's name. And he was in like a long black leather coat, black wraparound shades, he had some shopping bags with him, and he stopped me and he basically, I think his opening line was, used to be like a war zone round here, and we're still on this beautiful towpath, no one around. So he started regaling me with stories of the dodgy past of the Western Canal System, saying it was lawless. It was like a no man's land, and all the barges were operated by drug dealers, and they used to hide their stash beneath the water line, sort of, weight it down and hang it in the water, and the police wouldn't go down there. He was telling me all this stuff, and I thought that's a bit of a strange opening gambit, and a little part of me wondered if he was kind of warning me off. Anyway, he kind of kept me chatting for a while. Anyway, it was in its own right, it was a fascinating encounter. Very strange character. It's like he just emerged from the ether. And I carried on walking, went to turn back to ask him a question. He'd gone, disappeared, not to be seen. I kid you not. It was like on a towpath. And then about, I don't know, a couple of hundred yards later on down the road, I walked just near a bridge. There was 3 fellas who were clearly engaged in some nefarious activity. Let me put it that way. They had that kind of ghostly look about them. And afterwards I thought, I wonder if A, he was warning me off. He'd seen that on the way up the towpath because he would have walked past them and was holding me up so I didn't walk into some sort of exchange going on. And number one. And number 2 was, maybe he's the guy that had just done the drop off. So that, I'd say that one down. DK asks, I'd love you to do a walk from Edmonton to Ponder's End with some interesting tidbits of history. Yes, have I done that or not on a video? I had a period of time where I'd walk out through the forest from here, up across Epping Forest, up to Chingford, and I would nearly always end in Ponder's End. I had a period of time where all my walks ended in Ponder's End, which was really, became a real kind of like a magnet, like a nodal point for me. And then I started to avoid it. But have I walked from Ponder's End to Edmonton? I don't know if I have actually. I don't know if I have. I'm tempted to go that way, down to Francis Road, but it's going to be like loads of people there, aren't there? So that's the gentrified bit of Leighton now, Francis Road. They've painted the shops. They tried to make it look a little bit like Notting Hill, and the shops in there which sell very expensive bags of pasta and cheeses with names I can't pronounce. A lot of the local people around here, they love it. There is a bookshop down there, which is always good to see. And there's a pet shop, which has always been there. Here's the thing, this is not in the Q&A video. There are some like Instagram accounts and stuff that talk about the local shops. But it's really, what's really interesting is they always exclude the shops that were here for more than 5 years ago. They only highlight the new kind of trendy shops. And I feel like, why not include the kebab shop when you're putting in the nice cheese shop? We all like a nice coffee and we all like some nice stuff from the deli, me as much as that, but I also like some chicken and chips every now and again, and the pet shop's very useful as well. Just putting it out there, just a suggestion. You'll be able to tell that I am not preparing my answers, I'm reading them and I'm coming up with the answers as I go. Someone said, what's the most ambitious, difficult, technical walk, hike you've ever attempted? That's a really interesting question because I'm not sure they're always the same thing. The most ambitious one I've done is the longest one I've done, I think, where I walked from my front door to Hertford, but I went the long way because I went from here down to the River Lee and then up the Lee. So I ended clocking in at just over 30 something miles, I think. 32 miles, I think. So that was the most ambitious. Technical, ambitious. I think anything that involves a lot of map reading for me tends to be the most sort of ambitious, difficult and technical. And then the ones I often avoid, if I look at them, and these are like country walks. It's a country walk and there's a lot of map reading in it. I'm like, oh, I could get that really seriously wrong. When did I get... I mean, take your pick. There's so many that I've done like that. Ambitious, technical, difficult walk. I'm a little bit stumped by that question. Ambitious, technical, difficult. I think there's a walk. I'm just trying to think. I think maybe when I did the walk recently to Harwich on the Essex Way, that was quite a lot of twists and turns, and it was all on the Ordnance Survey map. And I could have easily have gone wrong, and I didn't. I felt really quite proud of myself to have got there. A walk I did, which was, I think it's titled my longest walk, which I think at that point was my longest walk, where I ended up walking to, not St Albans, ended up walking to Welwyn Garden City from Waltham Abbey. And there I got really lost, and that's where I was going in circles around a field. I think they blocked some footpaths off. I think I got home, I worked out how I'd done such a long walk, and I think I'd added on like 8 miles from having to backtrack on closed footpaths or from going the wrong way and not being able to get out of a field. that was a really challenging walk, and I had to walk along some really narrow roads. There was no footpath and people were driving really fast. To the extent at one point, I just went through a hedge into a stream and clambered out of the stream through the brambles into a field. I thought, otherwise I'm going to get run over soon. That one, I think, from Waltham Cross to Welwyn Garden City, 30 miles, I think it was 29 point something miles, and that was really hard work in the summer. So 3 walks there, I think, isn't there? I like this question. It says, can you put together for Arsenal fans to follow a walk, can you put a walk together for Arsenal fans to follow around the Islington, Camden, Hackney area? It would be good to do a walk with some history before a game that involves some pubs along the way. That's great. I would point you towards a couple of walks I've already put up here. There's one where I walk from here to Highbury, and that goes through Newington Green. Well, it obviously goes through Dalston, Newington Green, and then up to Highbury. That's a good one. The Hackney Brook passes through Highbury as well. And there's another walk I put up a few years ago where I go from Highbury Fields to Finsbury Park, I think. Though you could probably put something together from those three walks. What's this one? Please recommend a good walking shoe boot suitable for walking on wet, muddy grass and parks and spaces. I use Merrill footwear, and I have been now for about 5 years, I think. Here you go, here's some here. And they're great, they're really good. As soon as I wear a pair out, I just replace them, and I love them. If you could do your amazing walks in another UK city, which would you choose and why? I have been asked this question before, but I'm going to answer it again because it's slightly different. I think before I thought I'd do some of the northern industrial cities. Makes sense, doesn't it? And I think, apart from the obvious ones of like Liverpool, where I am a Liverpool supporter. I know this is always like, how can you be a Liverpool supporter? You're not from Liverpool. I can't be bothered with that anymore. I'm 50 years old. Liverpool would be great, but that's pretty obvious, I think. And then previously, I sort of thought, oh, Sheffield looks interesting. I think Sheffield's called the City of Rivers, isn't it? Sheffield looks really, really good. And I know there's an interesting YouTuber who lives up in Sheffield, doesn't he? And I've watched a few of his videos. Is it Patrick Dickinson? He's good. So I think Sheffield looks really interesting. And I'll be honest with you, Doctor Who is the main draw for Sheffield. However, I recently visited Norwich. Oh my God. Norwich is amazing. Why has no one told me about Norwich before? Why has no one said, you've got to go to Norwich? What an amazing historical city. And I know someone posted a comment actually a while ago saying about, isn't it Norwich has more medieval churches than any other city in Europe? Something like that. And there's an incredible amount of pubs and old pubs and all sorts. So I think Norwich will be definitely very high on the list. And another place where I've walked but never made a video, which is a great city for walking, is Bristol. It's a great city for walking. Do you think walking is meditative? Hello. Yes.
My son just said that that's you.
Ah, thank you very much. I'm filming right now. Can I include that?
Go on, Ash.
Thank. How lovely. This lady, you probably don't want to be in the video, do you?
No, I don't.
Her son watches my videos, which is great, or he certainly recognised me. You want to be in the video, Ash?
Hi.
Hi, Ash. Thanks for watching the videos, mate.
Yeah, it's all right.
Thanks for spotting me out. It's like, you understand that for me, that will make my day now. You've lowered the average age of my audience significantly as well.
He just said he
Excellent. Well, thanks, Ash. Thanks very much.
do a video with my...
Isn't that lovely? It's always really lovely when people stop and say hello and say, oh, watch your videos, enjoy your videos. Sometimes people shout at me from their cars and their vans. I love it. On with the next question. Do you think walking is meditative and can sometimes improve mental health? Absolutely. In fact, I think it's transformative. Anyway, for me, the way my mood will change when I don't go walking, I get quite difficult to live with. It's a bit like having a whippet that's not being walked, or a Labrador or something, start ripping up cushions and things. And it's deeply meditative. It really improves your mental health. I highly recommend it. Doesn't matter how far you walk either. Don't think you have to go and do some great enormous epic. Just doing what I'm doing here, just walking around the block, can help. John, what happened to the Rising Sun Pond? Spent many hours fishing there and hiring a boat. As far as I'm aware, it's still there, isn't it? That's from David. I don't think the Rising Sun Pond has gone. Makes me want to go and look for it. This time last year I made a video called Looking for the Lost Pond. So maybe this autumn I should go and go look for the rising sun pond. I'm pretty sure it's still there, isn't it? I mean, there won't be boats on it, but I'd be surprised if it doesn't exist anymore. Next question. If you had the money and the access, would you like to do long walks like Leveson Wood, who was on Channel 4, walked along the whole of the River Nile and perhaps along the Great Wall of China? It's a good question, actually, D-Raz. Once upon a time, I definitely would have liked to have done that. I don't really now, to be honest with you. I think that kind of adventuring is interesting, but my practice, or what I do, is about this. It's about celebrating the everyday. I think if you walk the Great Wall of China or you walk the Amazon, it's a very obvious kind of adventure to have. You can't not have an adventure, right? In fact, actually, maybe you'd be bored. You know what I mean? Like, it's got adventure on the outside of the tin. Walking around streets like this, it's not where people traditionally assume there's much adventure and astonishment to be found. But actually, you know, when I was talking to that young lad down there, that's a river down there running underneath the street. There used to be a windmill down the end of that road near the school. It's things like that which excite me. I've climbed active volcanoes when I was backpacking, went camel trekking in India, jungle trekking in Thailand, rode elephants, went rafting on bamboo rafts down rapids, and stayed in longhouses with Iban tribesmen in Sarawak on Borneo, and where they were former headhunters and they had shrunken heads there and all that kind of. I did a lot of that stuff in my 20s, and it is interesting to do. It's not really a strong desire for me now. I would like to do some of the longer distance paths in Britain. I'd like to take like a week or two to do some of the long distance paths in Britain. I'd love to go walking in the United States to do some bits maybe of the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail. That'd be cool. There's a bit of rain now. Morrigan has an interesting question, and Morrigan always makes very interesting comments. So this intro is, which is the place that feels that inner pull to you in London? It's really interesting. What's the place that gives you that inner pull? And I think there's not one place only. The area around the Penton Mound, around the top of Pentonville Road, down through those streets of Clerkenwell, down into Little Italy. The video I made at the beginning of this year called London's Little Italy, that kind of explores that territory. That's got a real deep inner pull to me, very deep inner pull. And the other place is Epping Forest, which just keeps drawing me in. It's got a really special kind of, got a connection to it. And I know it's on the edge of London. I really do strongly feel that a lot of the story of London is to be found around those wooded fringes. Epping, you know, the forest, the great, London, one of the meanings of London is said to be the stockade in the woods. The woods would have been the woods, I guess, at the bottom of the slopes of Islington, and the stockade being around the Thames. However, I sort of feel that image of London when I go to Epping Forest, that it kind of brings us back to the very kind of like essence of London, if you know what I mean. It's got a really strong pull to me, and I haven't been there for a while, so you may be getting an Epping Forest video quite soon actually, because I need to get out there. In fact, I might even do it over the next few days. Jane. Now this is a little bit long to summarise, but Jane said she sent me a message on Facebook and she sent me some photographs, and she did indeed, and it was an amazing story of a haunted flat in Barkingside, and she lived there in the 80s, and it was an astonishing story really. I think the flat had a colourful recent past. It had been a brothel, I think, pretty clearly, before Jane moved in. And then there was things being thrown around the apartment. A big, heavy kind of lid on a water tank got tossed off the roof onto the road. It was an astonishing series of events. And but also even the kind of just the characters that were around were kind of incredible as well. Great story, Jane. Thanks for sending that to me. This is a good question, actually. Have you ever been to or walked in Berlin? If not, would you consider it as a busman's holiday destination? I would be happy to contribute to crowdfunding you. That's a very kind thing of you to say, EC London, when travelling returns to normal. Yeah, I'd love to go to Berlin. No, I don't think it would be a busman's holiday. I think it'd be amazing. I don't know why I've never been to Berlin. I think it's because I've sometimes gone to go in the winter, and everyone's warned me off going to Berlin in the winter because it's astonishingly cold. I know I'd love to go. I've got a mate who lives in Berlin actually, and he's always going. It's a great city for walking, so I will do that, and I won't bother you with the crowdfunding. I will thank you for the suggestion. But you're right. When can we do something like that? Do you reckon next summer, perhaps? Maybe. This is a sorry for the late question. It is raining a bit now, and although my camera is waterproof, my microphone isn't, so I might have to call it quits quite soon. And if need be, we could finish off indoors, but I think you've probably getting to the point where you've heard enough questions, haven't you? Have you done a video on the Zeppelin Memorial at Woodford Wells? That was from Simvod. No, I haven't. And you know what? I didn't know there was one. So I'd really like to go and find the Zeppelin Memorial at Woodford Wells. That sounds great. David Williams asks, do you have a destination or project that you would like to do but don't think we'll be able to do for logistical or other reasons? That's a good one, mate. That's a really good one. I'm sure I must have. I mean, most of the places I choose because I think I can get there. I can do it. I mean, I'd love to do more sites like Orford Ness, and someone did actually suggest visiting some research establishments, some military research establishments which still exist, and he was going to take me out there actually, and that was a walk we were going to do, and that obviously had a number of logistical issues to it. I'd like to do more of that kind of secret landscape stuff, but proper secret landscape stuff, not like former secret landscapes, but current research establishments and stuff. Not to intrude or to like trespass, but just to look at the, I don't know, just to look at the landscape, these places where we're not permitted to go. That would be cool. This is a good one. I'm not sure if this has been asked before, but if you could have a walk in the city with any person, alive or dead, who would that person be and where would you walk? It's difficult to choose one, isn't it? I mean, the immediate answer I get when I see that question is I just think to walk in London with Charles Dickens would be incredible. Particularly at night, to do a night walk with Charles Dickens would be amazing. But then there's also like writers like Patrick Hamilton. Would be amazing to go for a walk around Fitzrovia and that with the author Patrick Hamilton, who wrote The Midnight Bell and Hangover Square and those kind of books. That would be incredible. And also the wonderful Thomas Burke, who's written some of my favourite London books. It would be amazing to walk through London with him. But I think, how could you not want to walk around London with Charles Dickens? I think if I could choose one, it would be Charlie Dickens. It's getting really wet now, isn't it? Okay, one more before my microphone dies. What's the best myth about London you have found, and any proof of it really taking place? My favourite London myths, I'm going to give you two quickly. And I will link to more about them below because they're featured in videos. One is the Penton Mound, the prehistoric mounds of London, and the role they played in the sacred landscape of pre-Roman London. I love that bit of mythology. I'd say almost certainly made up. I don't think there's any evidence at all. Some of the sites do have a long history, like Parliament Hill has a long history, Tot Hill, Westminster is, and Tower Hill. You can see they've all been used subsequently. Whether they had any kind of sacred or symbolic purpose or not, I don't really know. I don't think there's been any proof of that. My other great story is the legend of Horsingdon Hill, and I'll link to me telling that story as I ascend Horsingdon Hill below. It's a great, great story. So it's now raining really quite hard. My little microphone on top of this is electronic and it's not enjoying the rain at all. And I've nearly answered every single one of the questions. Let's just scuttle through the last ones. What's your favourite bridge across the Thames? Waterloo Bridge. I used to walk over Waterloo Bridge on my way to work at the South Bank. If you could live in any part of London for the rest of your life, where would you live? Here, Leytonstone. I love it in Leytonstone. I'd happily live here for the rest of my life. Do you ever get lost, says Chris from Florida. Chris, you need to watch more of my videos. Yes, I get lost all the time. And I think Chris's question of asking me whether I get lost or not is the perfect question to end on. Thank you so much if you've sat through this video. Thank you so much for watching my videos, subscribing and commenting and all the rest of it, or just watching really. It means a massive amount to me. And as I always like to say, I look forward to seeing you on the next walk, wherever that may be. And it'll be good, it'll be great, it'll be a cracking walk. Take care.